What's up guys, and welcome to the video on data analysis. Let's do it. When it comes to data analysis problems, it's really all about being able to read a graph, understand what's being conveyed as far as information or data. So we're just going to go through a few different types of graphs, tables, charts, etc. so that you can know how to get familiar with these different presentation tools, understand them, and answer questions that pertain to them. So first we're going to talk about tables. So a table, and we got three basic ones. We got tables, graphs, and charts. So first we're going to talk about tables in particular. Tables usually appear like this, where you have rows and columns, sort of like an Excel spreadsheet. And at the top of each of these columns again are the vertical pieces, and rows, that's how we talk about the horizontal pieces. So in the top row, we've got the sort of like title. So that's going to pertain to everything below it. Everything below it's going to be a student in that first column. Everything below grade is going to have to relate to a grade, so on and so forth. So now in this table, we have our three students listed there: Sarah, Tim, and Huzaifa. Now the grades for each of these, we have 9 for Sarah, meaning Sarah's in 9th grade, Tim is in 10th grade, and Huzaifa, me, is in 11th grade. All right, then for the class, we've got English, and math, meaning Sarah and Tim are in English, I'm in math. And finally, we've got scores relating to a score on a final or in the class grade, something like that. And for Sarah, we've got 98, Tim 82, me 91. Okay, so for example, if we're looking here, if we're looking at what are the scores for kids in the English class, we just would look at the scores for Sarah and Tim, that 98 and the 82. That would exclude me. But now if we're looking for scores across the board in both English and math, then that would bring my score into the mix. So you can see how a question could ask for something specific related to data in the table. Now let's talk about graphs. So graphs usually will have to do with an XY coordinate plane, similar to when you're graphing linear equations. And usually on that horizontal axis at the bottom there, it's going to be time. That's usually the case. That's usually how graphs present data. Not always, but typically. So here in this case, we're going to give the example of day at the bottom, so it's the number of days. And in this particular case, we're going to be talking about apples consumed. So we're all just talking about how many apples are eaten on particular days. And then we've got everything nicely with our little lines. So you can see each one of these little lines on the bottom represents one day. And then we've got points. We've got all these points, and this would be called a scatter plot. And the way we can think about it is it just corresponds to particular values, okay? So let's say we're starting off, if we look at this one value here, this is 9 days out. So what this means, on the 9th day, there were 12 apples that were consumed, okay? Because we can see on that 9th day, that particular point it matches up vertically with that 12 mark on the vertical axis, so 12 apples consumed. If we look at another point down here, on the 7th day, it tells us that 9 apples were consumed. So you can see there is a relationship between the X and Y values. Finally, we're going to talk about two different types of charts. Now, here we have a chart with 4 different people: John, James, Kate, and Jenna. And this chart relates to number of pets that they own, right? So in this case, John owns 3 pets, James owns 5 pets, Kate owns 4 pets, and Jenna owns 2 pets. So you might have a question like this ask you to calculate the total number of pets owned by everybody, the mean number of pets owned by each person, so on and so forth. So you just be able to have to understand what type of information is being conveyed and how to interpret it, and so on and so forth. The last chart I'm going to show you here is a pie chart. This is used all the time. A pie chart is really representing 100%, okay? It's like when you go all the way around in this pie, you're talking about 100% of whatever options are out there. So you see in this case, we're talking about pet owners, and it's split up by men, women, and single men, single women, and families. And you'll notice in this case, if you add up all those values, 23% plus 19% plus 58%, those all add up to 100%. And it will always be the case in a pie chart. And the idea is to really look, I can look at this without even looking at the numbers, and I can tell you that the majority of pet owners is families. It's not single women, it's not single men, it's families. And that's what you want to try and show people when you're giving them a pie chart. They should be able to look at it right away and make these big judgments about what's going on with this data. That's all for the video on data analysis. Let's get into some practice problems.